Good evening, everyone, to the CPC meeting on December 17th, 2025. Certain meetings normally held at the municipal offices are being held remotely with adequate alternative means of public access and where required, public participation provided in accordance with House Bill number 58 at the 193rd General Court, which extended the governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, until June 30, 2027. Meetings are typically broadcast on YouTube, I think, is the actual place you can find them now. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:16 p.m. Guidelines for business meetings, speak one at a time, follow Deerfield Code of Conduct. Be respectful, considerate, courteous, concise, and please raise your hand before speaking to be recognized by the chair. Members present. Ann Buchanan.
Here.
Frank Leone.
Here.
Lily Caswell.
Here.
Peter James.
Here.
Haley Dwight.
Here.
Jeff Brown. You gotta just unmute Jeff and say here so we can hear you.
Here.
And Kathy Sylvester here. Thank you. And welcome, Jeff, to your first CPC meeting as a member. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Glad to see you here. Guests present, Alex Galloway. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of 11/12/2025. If anyone has any comments or concerns.
I have a comment.
Yes.
And I'm looking for the last large paragraph that talks about the endorsing the 1821 Meeting House project. The request was subject to conditions. It's not subject to any conditions which might arise. So I would strike any and strike which might arise. We still have to work through that, so we know that we have work to do on it.
Right. And what did you want it to say? I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
I would strike in the last sentence. I would strike any and strike which might arise so that it reads subject to conditions.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So I'll read the sentence just so people are clear about it. It says Peter moved, Lily seconded that we endorse the project subject to conditions. All approved. Does that sound
you. Perfect.
Excellent. Now, if somebody wants to have
I move to accept the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Peter seconded. All those in favor, I'll start with Ann again.
Yes, in favor.
Frank?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. Jeff? Oh,
Yes.
you weren't
Aye.
on the committee. I'm sorry. Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
I'm abstaining because I didn't attend.
Okay. Lily?
Yes.
And Kathy, yes. So that is what? How many yeses? How many no nos? How many abstains?
Three abstains. There were
Thank
three
you.
abstentions.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4 yes, no nos, and 3 abstained. Thank you.
Is somebody taking notes?
Oh, well, that's the next thing.
I am.
Oh, Ann is. God bless you.
The next thing was to appoint a new clerk, and Jeff, God love you, has asked to be the clerk. I mean, what a wonderful thing. So if
I move that we appoint Jeff Brown or Jeffrey Brown. Do you prefer Jeffrey or Jeff?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, I move that we appoint Jeff Brown as the clerk of our fabulous CPC committee.
A second.
and any discussion, anybody else dying for the position? Okay. Okay, thank you. So all those in favor, Ann?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Lily?
Yes.
Jeff?
I'll abstain.
And Kathy, yes. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Jeff. We so appreciate it.
Mhm.
So I'm
problem.
going to move to the 1821 building because Alex is here with us and she has to get back to the select board meeting. So, as Peter mentioned earlier, we did approve the project subject to conditions, but we haven't discussed what those conditions would be. I asked Alex to get a copy of the grant agreement that we all were looking at last summer and was still in draft form. And it somehow went missing from the drive. And so Alex has recreated it the best she could. I don't know if you want to share that. And she added some thoughts about conditions as well. So
Yes. Sorry, give me one second. I pulled up the other conditions. Sorry, hold on.
oh,
a
that's
second.
okay.
Um, okay. Okay, so we're talking about the draft conditions letter. Right, Kathy? That's the main one. Okay.
The main one, and then we'll talk about
Okay, perfect.
committee's ideas and what you had mentioned as well to me.
Yeah, so I know we did approve this, but unfortunately it looks like it disappeared from the drive, as Kathy mentioned.
Can you make it larger, please?
Oh yeah, sorry.
I don't know if
There
we
we go.
approved it or if we were just still in draft form and we had made recommendations. I looked like at the minutes I was looking at.
Oh, I think the September minutes said that it was approved. So
Okay.
it was, yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, I don't have all the comments, and so I don't know if you guys want to, add it. I think there are a few maybe verbiage changes, but I mean, you could probably change them every year, evaluate this letter every year.
I think what I
Um,
was going to suggest is that we look at the main agreement at another meeting.
oh, sorry. Okay.
No, that's all right. I kind of misled you by asking you to bring this up. Because it wasn't on the agenda for one thing, but also
Right.
yeah, we have a lot going on, but we did want to talk about the conditions for the 1821 building. So other than this main page, you had some suggestions of additional conditions. I know Peter has some things in mind, and I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, and what I did was I actually stole some of the 1888 grant agreement language.
Mhm.
And I feel like that was obviously vetted through attorneys and, relatively, I mean, it's much larger in scales. I don't think we necessarily need a fully separate grant agreement like that one did. But we could use that draft letter that I was just showing you guys, that as the base with the general conditions, and then you could add some special conditions. Um, I just wanted to pull some of the big things that I thought it seemed like maybe they were put in there very intentionally. So the first one in the agreement was this deed restrictions about, a restriction, an acceptable form. It doesn't really mention the historic, just saying that, um, there's a restriction that it's for municipal purposes. And just if you weren't aware, this property, the 1821 Meeting House, already has a recorded use restriction. So I put the book and page number in here, and it's already restricted to municipal purposes.
We're
Oh,
not
can you
looking
see
at
it?
that though. No, we're not seeing that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Okay.
That would be, thanks. Hold on, let me share. Maybe I accidentally shared
Well,
a
yeah, the
specific
regular
page.
one, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Is that better? Now can you see this? I just pulled an excerpt in red text. Okay, thanks.
Oh.
So, sorry, there was a deed restriction in the main grant language from the 1888 building. It's all about the use, but this deed already has for 1821, it already has a use restriction. So I don't
Mm.
know that you need to add another one on top of it. Um, and then the condition, so then this was kind of written in the same format, and that's why I stole it for that grant letter that we drafted and spent time on, was there were general conditions and then there was like special conditions for this project. And so One, I think that makes sense. The all in, Secretary of Interior standards shall be upheld. Obviously, this has a rehab component. Absolutely makes sense. Um, the second special condition was having a historic preservation consultant. This project's not really that complex. It's not a long project. I mean, I think they said it'll take a few weeks. There's only a handful of people who are steeple jacks who really understand the restoration work and actually have a lift that goes up like 65 feet who,
Wow.
so I
have
don't,
a preliminary question on it because Alex,
yeah,
I
go ahead.
don't agree that we can chop a lot of this out, but
Okay.
I'm stuck because we have essentially two pieces that are going on with this. In the appraisal, you have an appraisal of whether the tower repairs can be done appropriately, and then you have an appraisal on what the floor looks like. My question is at what point in time is the tower project a go?
Well, I mean, we just need to do some engineering to make sure it'll be okay structurally, and then really the construction is only the exterior work at this point.
And I'm not. I just, in terms of keeping it simple for you folks, if the assessment on the floor is not important for the structure for the tower repair, then you may want to put it in a couple of steps. You assess the engineering for the tower and get that started, and your biggest chunk of money is for that particular repair, and then the rest of the money is available to integrate into the floor work.
Right.
But I think there could be an A and B here because we could get skunked on what it's going to cost to fix the floor.
Oh, yeah, fixing the floor is not part of the scope at all.
But
It's
except for the appraisal,
the study. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
Right.
I think you really need to put that in this area. It's the intent of the parties that the assessment and repair of the tower is the priority, and the assessment on the floor is secondary in terms of how you flow the money.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, do you want that as a condition or?
Yeah, I think it's a safe condition. Because we don't confuse. You're going to need a lot more money for the floor if the floor is going to get fixed.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is, and we recognize that this has been a political issue for about a year or two. What we want to do is to get the tower piece done.
Yeah.
And then
Agreed.
finding the money to get that piece done is primary, and the secondary is going to what's left over can go toward the floor.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I agree we would run the project that way. I think it was more of like I didn't see any language about stepwise and process in the last 1888 stuff, you know what I mean? So like I just wasn't sure if like what degree of detail you want in this. That's fine if you guys do.
Not clear why we're putting that in there because the money we have can't go toward the floor at all anyway. Because so I'm not sure why, because this is just to do with the steeple, correct? I mean, that's what your application is.
So the application is for the engineering studies of the steeple, the fixing it, and engineering of the flooring, and just looking at it and figuring out what's allowable and what we could do. So it is an engineering study. There's, I guess, like I separated into two components, engineering and the structure work for the steeple, and then engineering for the flooring.
So the flooring would be part of a historical preservation? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, the meeting house, the flooring, because it was rolled on logs, and everyone said there was a time for a service and a funeral and a wedding, because it rolled down. It's
I
on
think
these.
you can get away with that by calling it a rehab. It's also a safety issue.
Yeah. So it's and we
clearly you got a two-step process here, so that you can deal with where the leftover money is, and as long as everybody understands that, that's fine by me.
So Lee, I'm sorry, Julie had a question.
Sorry, for the life of me, I can't find the little button where you put your hand up.
Oh, I see your hand, but
okay. I guess I don't totally understand this conversation because the proposal says two things. One is look at the steeple and fix it, and the other is look at the floor. there's nothing in it about fixing the floor, so I don't see why we would need to protect against not having enough money for the floor or something like that. I think the proposal stands and it's clear as it is.
Well, there's a priority here, and that's all I'm raising is that they're not going to fix the floor with this money. They're going to have to come back for more. But when they do the assessment of the building, the primary assessment is to fix the tower, and once that's done, they can use the leftover money to assess the floor.
Well,
But you got to do the tower.
don't you have a budget that is saying the evaluation and the fix of the steeple and then the study of the floor?
Yeah, it's kind of melded together. And so like Peter, I'll be honest, like I wasn't totally sure when I was writing it, like if the structural part fails and is causing the steeple part to fail, you know what I mean? I just don't know how connected or not those joists and that structural framing is going to be because of how old it is. I mean, there's a possibility that yeah, maybe we won't be able to do the whole project, but I think it's a pretty conservative estimate. I mean, we used professional steeplejack and based it off of that, and I put a pretty healthy contingency, I think, in there. I mean, it's 20%. It's a lot higher than most even like construction projects.
I've had to deal with this on the sidewalk for about 6 months, so I'm aware of it, and I don't have any problems with it. I just think there's an allocation of where you put the rest of the money. That's all. And that's all. The only point I'm trying to make.
Fair. No, it's a good for project management, at least, thoughts too. Go ahead, Lily.
So, I'm trying to get some clarity. We're talking about the conditions, right? Not the application. Because the application I thought was pretty clear. So, Peter, you're trying to say in the conditions that the primary focus is the stabilization of the steeple. And that is first money. Is that correct?
I agree.
That's what you're trying to say. And so, and especially because Alex just said that, who knows, we might have to do some floor work in order to support the steeple. Unlikely, hopefully, but you never know. But that would then potentially overrun what is budgeted for the steeple. But so Peter's saying then you dig into the engineering money because the goal is to get the steeple first. Is that right, Peter?
That's my impression.
Okay, so I guess what I'm just saying, maybe in the condition, we say that the first money and primary goal of the project is to stabilize and rehabilitate the steeple. Is that
right? Something to
and then
that
you
effect?
can add the second half of the next sentence that's saying, to the extent there are funds remaining, those funds will be applied to the assessment of the floor.
Yeah.
How does that sound, Alec?
Okay.
So funding was.
Nice.
So I think you want to say funding will prioritize clock tower restoration rather than with. Or
Okay.
prioritizes, rather, if you don't want a passive voice in there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So prioritizes clock tower restorations, comma, and to the extent that funding is remaining, it will go to the floor, and then you need space. There you go. I think that's what Peter was.
There. Does that maybe clear it up a little bit, just so it's assessment and not
Better, yeah.
construction? Okay.
Those might be two different conditions, right? Because one is the direction of funding, and the other one is that the work will be to the standards. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. So the historic preservation consultant,
That's not
didn't,
necessary.
yeah, I just don't think it's that big of a project for it. Let's see, this was like the 1888 project was allowed 5 years under the direction of CPC, and obviously this project is definitely not going to even take nearly the same amount of time. And I think the returning of the funds to the category was already in the draft grant conditions, like just in the general conditions we had. So I didn't think we really needed to say that. Um, this one was the progress reporting. Again, I think we already put that as general conditions anyway in the grant letter. Um, this one was kind of interesting. Christopher and I talked about this one a little bit. I don't know that we necessarily have a need to set up an 1821 building advisory committee like at this moment for this project necessarily, but obviously once we start really looking at the reuse and how that takes shape, maybe it would be prudent to just have a CPC member on that, if that makes sense. And I don't know if you want to condition it that way or we just, I mean, could just do it. It's okay if you want to condition it that way. That's why I threw it in there. But
I would vote against that myself.
Well,
I
you
know.
know, you're right, Kathy. You're right. We don't need it. If say they come back and want $500,000, then we can put that in.
do it then. Yeah.
But I don't. We don't need the extra work.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. I was just like, well, maybe there's somewhere. Okay. This one, I thought this made sense. Any future changes that impact the historic nature shall require advance review and approval by CPC. I think that one's fine to add in there. It's up to you guys. It's a historic resource, so I think that's totally fair. And then this one was just that you'll comply with the MGL and CPA laws and stuff and procurement. So I think it's covered also again in the general conditions that we drafted up in that other award letter. So
Well,
that was
thank
it.
you, Alex.
Yeah, of course.
Does
No problem.
anybody have anything they want to add? Everybody, Lily, you want
Well,
to
I
say?
was just going to move that we accept these as the conditions as amended for the Meeting House or 1821 or whatever we're calling it project.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The only discussion I would have is we may want to read the final draft of it just to confirm that it's there. I don't personally care to do other than make sure that the final draft is in order. I don't want to add anything. I'd like to see it.
Sure. How about we vote on that the next meeting, once it's
Sure.
written up? Does
Yeah.
that sound good to everybody? So we don't need to vote on this today.
But I think you're right, Kathy. But voting on it next meeting would be fine, and it's going to be a rubber stamp at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Alex. And anything else, Alex, before you need to run off?
I don't think so. If you need anything, feel free to call me or let me know.
Oh, always, yeah, I'm in regular touch with you, I think. So, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you all. Take care. Have a good night and a good holiday.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
So the next thing on the agenda, number 7, was just wanted to get the final approval of the CPC plan, which I sent everybody the final. And if you have anything to add to it, please don't. But if you do, let you speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. So anything, Lily?
I just have a question. Are we gonna like review this annually or something like that?
You're supposed to, yeah.
Okay.
You know, legally, yes. So,
Okay.
when will that be? I mean, it really should be before the applications go out. So I guess we can
Summer.
look at it this summer and see if there's any additions, subtractions, new members, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. So, I I thought it looked fantastic. There's a lot, represents a lot of hard work and thoughtfulness. So I move that we accept it and
Second.
publish it.
You're seconded. Any comments or discussion? Okay, so let's take a vote. Julie,
Where did Julie go?
she's there somewhere.
Aye.
Peter,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
and Anne.
Yes. Did somebody second that motion?
Peter did.
Okay, thanks.
So, Anne, you know that Jeff's taking minutes, right?
Oh, no, I didn't.
I'm
Okay.
trying to.
You were a little late. So he was elected to
Okay.
so great to the offer.
I should have asked.
Would I
Okay.
be able to see the transcript of the meeting?
The recording,
Yeah.
yes. Not sure when.
Mhm.
Because do you know anything about that, Lily? Like when that will be available?
Well, so what happens is after the meetings, I get the Zoom link, and it's a downloadable Zoom link. And I send it to Town Hall, and I CC the committee. So if I have Jeff's email now to add to the committee, then you will get that with the download with the password and stuff like that. Okay?
Do you have his email?
This is a good question. I'll go look.
Okay, well, I'll make sure you get it if not. So don't want to add it to the recording. You might get all kinds of email. So the next is the Laurel Hill Cemetery application. There's nobody really here to discuss it. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, concerns about that application. I thought Ben might be here. Peter?
I have questions in that the application refers back to work that was done in 2020. I don't have a sense of how much work needs to be done in now and in the future. Are we 90% done? Are we 50% done? And it's just a question of, well, does this get us through another 20 stones and we have 200 left, or what how do we get our arm around this?
So it's a good question, and since no one's here to represent the application, we can't talk about it, or can't answer that, I should say. So I guess I would suggest we table this until someone is able to make the meeting, unless
I
someone.
move we table this until our next meeting.
I hear a second? I'll second it, never mind. Any discussion? If not, we'll take a vote. Julie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Anne,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes, please.
Haley,
Yes.
and Kathy, yes, thank you. So we're really moving right along because,
So the
nobody.
fellow who is focusing on that is the gentleman from Texas. I think its name is, what's his name? Mr. Harris, perhaps?
He was he said someone was going to show up and they didn't. He thought someone was going to come in, but they didn't. So,
Right.
and then the next attack painting, we're going to have to table because Chris Harris couldn't make this meeting, and I did send him the list of questions that the committee was going to ask so he could be prepared to answer them, but he felt it needed more time, and so he's going to attend another meeting. So I'll give him some dates. Lily.
I think you did say this to him in the email, but I think we really need either a letter from PVMA or, I mean, we need something written from PVMA that actually says that we will be we guarantee that it will be showing in a public place and it will be accessible to Deerfield residents.
Yeah. So I did say that they need to come to the meeting preferably so we can ask questions of them, because I have questions for them. I'm sure everybody wants some answers. And then Yeah, that would be better than a letter, in my opinion, because we have a letter, but the letter's kind of ambiguous, so. Peter, you have a question?
Well, I do have some comments. It can wait till these people show up, but I do have some comments about the project. I'll just say them now so you can see what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
I want to know how long the public display is being designed for. I want to know if our funding is first in or last in. And I want a much firmer commitment from Friends of Deerfield that if the asset is to be transferred, it must be transferred to PVMA or Historic Deerfield.
So if you could, let's see, maybe, there's a paper for questions and comments in the drive regarding each.
Okay, I'll go look for that. We did that with Julie. Julie picked up my comments on questions for her project, and I certainly don't mind putting that in there.
Yeah, there's one for every project for people to add to if they have questions, so that we could, get the applicant prepared ahead of time. So yeah, if you put those in, that would be great.
Will do.
Thank you. And then I will forward those to Chris. And again, reiterate that the committee talked about wanting PVMA to be at the meeting, so we could ask more questions. Anyone else? So do we have to vote to table that, or can we just table it?
I move that we table it till next meeting. What the heck?
I second that.
Okay, Frank seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor, Frank,
Aye.
Julie,
Yes.
Anne,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Kathy. Yes, thank you. See, we're gonna be done by 7 at this rate. Let's see. Or, yeah. Let's see. So, the next thing on the agenda is the Conservation Fund application. So maybe, Julie, you might want to take the floor, and we have another guest, Chris Curtis, who's joining us. How you doing, Chris?
Good, thank you. I'm here to support Julie in this process.
Excellent. Okay.
Great. So, yes, Chris is a member of the Open Space Committee, and this is a joint grant application by the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee. And so the proposal is to establish a conservation fund for the town of Deerfield. And conservation funds are under Massachusetts general law as part of the Conservation Commission. So once these are established by a warrant article at town meeting, then the Conservation Fund can accept money from multiple sources, gifts and other things. But it can also very much accept community preservation funds. And the idea is to have a pot of money that's flexible and usable for land acquisition, in some cases, conservation restriction acquisitions and other purposes around open space and passive recreation in the town of Deerfield. So there's really a process, a multi-stage, not multi-stage, but a couple items that go together. One is the town will have to vote to establish the fund, and then CPC would vote or review this application to put money into the fund. And we are proposing an initial money of $100,000, just this one time. The Open Space Committee and Conservation Commission is thinking long-term about putting more funds into this conservation fund as we use funds that are in it for land acquisition and other purposes. But this application is 1 year, $100,000. And the money that goes into the conservation fund from the CPC has a restriction that comes along with it, and that is that the money has to be spent for CPC eligible projects. So you would go back to that grid that the CPC has about what you can and can't do with CPC money, and that is what would control what the Conservation Commission ultimately can do with the CPC funds. We anticipate and would like to have the Open Space Committee be actively involved in that process, that open space and passive recreation process with the Conservation Commission. So this would be a new entity for the town, a conservation fund. It would have funds that were coming into it from the Community Preservation Committee, hopefully voted by the town. And then we're looking at, and we have looked at other towns across the state and cities that have very successfully used conservation funds for open space and for passive recreation. So I think that's an overview of how it's structured. And then there were several questions that committee members posted that I put some answers into. So we can go into those questions if desired, or into different questions.
Lily, a question.
So I have a couple of questions. One thing that occurred to me as you were speaking is, so let's take the grant money, or the money that you're seeking for the trails, right? Would those still come to the CPC, or would they go to the Conservation Trust? Because trails aren't really conservation, they're more sort of open space. So is the Conservation Trust only for conservation, or would it also support those other open space efforts that are not strictly conservation?
The Conservation Fund can do land acquisition, as we mentioned. It can do conservation restrictions. It can do other open space activities that, if consistent with CPC eligibility. And so things like easements for trails could be part of the work that is done by this fund. So it is a broader range of activities related to open space and conservation, open space / conservation, but often those types of projects also have a passive recreation aspect to them, have trails that can be developed as part of the process.
Okay, so then my initial question though is about accountability. And so if we do the seed money for this, and it's $100,000, what's the accounting transparency? Is it managed by the town accountant and reported in the annual town meeting? What's the accountability of the trust?
So the trust is under the control of the Conservation Commission, and it is recommended, and I think we would definitely want to put this into practice, that the money that is coming into the trust that is CPC money be accounted for separately and be held in a separate account by the town accountant. And then that facilitates tracking that it's being used for CPC eligible funds. And
Yeah.
So that's the sort of the range of the accountability for how it's being used. I'm not entirely sure that I know that in the town bylaws, it says that acquisition of property has to be approved by the select board. So I think that's another layer of accountability for this fund.
So this is just for purchasing, not for other activities, conservation, or yes, it is. I'm not clear.
It can, so it can be, so again, I go back to most broadly, the fund can be used for any CPC eligible use. So that can be, acquisition of open space. It can be restrictions. It could be things related to passive recreation trails, etc. So, and the CPC has a role in thinking about what do we want to have be used, how the Conservation Commission would use the money for CPC relevant operations. I would argue that it's best for the CPC to be as broad as possible and leave discretion to the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee, working with the Conservation Commission to make these priority decisions about which projects to fund.
Well, the point also is that two of the members on the CPC, Conservation Commission, Open Space, so we do have representation.
Yes. Yeah,
Peter,
so Sean Libby and myself.
right. Peter, you have a question or a comment?
I have a few. I spent some time reviewing this. I've also spoken with other conservation commissions. I've got a letter into DOR, and I've done a bit of research as well. When I originally read the application looked at July 1 to establish a conservation trust, and I knew that wasn't going to work. Julie had responded with a very detailed assessment of what she thought needed to be done for the conservation fund, also known as a conservation trust. Obviously, it has to be in writing, and it also has to be approved by the town. She's done a good job of cataloging that, but the point is the town has to authorize the creation of the fund. And so I think that will fall in line reasonably well. And remember, the conservation fund does things far in excess of what the Community Preservation Act does. The Community Preservation Act monies would be a very small portion of what they're authorized to do. When we first discussed this concept of funding the Conservation Trust, it was done for the purpose of recognizing there are short-term deals that come out there that the Conservation Commission needs to react to. You got 61, 61A, 61B, and APR, sometimes very small windows to buy in. And that was the purpose of our discussion, was to do it in that vein. I have no problem supporting a chunk of money that does that. My concern is that I am not comfortable that this money that we send out, according to what Julie has talked about, is responsive to the needs of the Community Preservation Committee. We have no monitoring authority, nor necessarily do we want an extra job to do. But I think it exceeds, and what I'm also worried about is that these projects that the Conservation Commission undertakes may well run in violation of our obligations with regard to the use of our money. And I don't say this lightly. I say that I have no problem with the simplistic start that we had, is to fund emergency projects. And if it's not an emergency, there's plenty of time to be able to approach our committee, to get a special meeting and all sorts of other stuff. But I do have concerns, and I don't have an answer, but I have concerns that the Conservation Commission well, not that I love the Conservation Commission, but I have concerns that our committee will lose the ability to control the project until after, and once it's after the fact, we're obviously not going to get into litigation with the town to overturn it. So it's just going to be a mess. But I do think we may be exceeding our authority to provide a very loose grant to the commission. I think that it's fraught with peril, and we have to be very careful as to how we approach that.
So do you want to have conditions on the conservation fund that states what specifically it can be used for? I mean, I don't know if that works, Julie, or is that what you're suggesting, Peter?
Well, the part of it said, if you read the DOR letter, part of it says that when you give this money to the fund, it's predicated on the fact that we're going to get a lien on the property, or in this situation, essentially the town is liening itself, but there will be restrictions on the property, and this they also say you've got to get town meeting approval on these restrictions as well. So you've got restrictions on the property, and you've got the deed issues, and you have to present it to the town in that format, which is fine, because we kind of slip and slide on the way we get our town approvals without telling the town what we're going to put in there for restrictions. But there are specific restrictions that DOR wants to see with this type of arrangement. Now, they've done it for other towns, and Duxbury has done it. They were going to try to get me some information on how they do it on their town meeting warrants, but I haven't got that information yet. So it's all eminently doable. But I don't happen to think that CPC has a monitor role here. And trying to correct something after the fact is a waste of energy. It's just a mess, because it's essentially one part of the town going after the other part of the town for making a mistake. So I have concerns that we may be exceeding our ability to properly give this money away if we make the gifting too broad. But again, it's a serious legal concern that I have that I think the committee has to flow through and may want some legal advice on.
Okay, Lily?
I think, Peter brings up some good points. I thought that Julie did address them and say that there will be restrictions that the money that we fund them with can only be used in accordance with CPC requirements. But it sounds like we're being asked to make a gift to an entity that doesn't exist yet. And that the entity, if we had a clearly established entity with its rules, then it would be pretty obvious about it. It would presumably address Peter's concerns. So I think that. So my question is, will there be a warrant article before this article that establishes the Conservation Trust and all of its bylaws and requirements and stuff? Because that has to be approved by town meeting first, right?
Correct.
Right, and what I'm saying is there's no reason why that approval of the establishment of the trust and CPC funding of the trust can't not occur at the same town meeting. They could both.
One article can follow the other, Julie. And I think you were very clear in the way you started to set that up. But that's the way the towns do it. You put the trust into effect, and then you vote money into the trust. So that part of it comes out reasonably well if you can dovetail it appropriately. And I'm concerned. My concern gets back to whether the Community Preservation Committee gives away its responsibility. And part of that, and I just want you to think about it, I don't know the answers here, but one of the things that bothers me is that we have more than open space and recreation to pass the money around for. And we have to be very, very careful if we're passing around a lot of discretionary money that normally we may not fund. Say for example, Concom has a project that they like, but we don't really, we want to spread the money somewhere else. We don't have that value judgment available. So we just have to realize that that kind of concern can arise if we're not careful. And I just want people to think it through, because I think there's a lot of nuance. I love the idea of just having money around if there's an emergency project. But once this expands into a much larger scenario, then I just think that the CPC has to be very careful as to how it defines itself. And frankly, personally, if we put $250,000 into the Conservation Commission, I'd love it, because I'm an old Conservation Commission person. But that's not necessary. I don't necessarily think that we have the ability, the authority to do that easily.
Well,
But
a couple points in response. I think it is responsible for the Community Preservation Committee to put money into a conservation fund for the reasons that we discussed about flexibility. The committee can think about what it thinks is acceptable to be on that menu. But $100,000 in the context of all of the funding that the CPC has, I don't think is out of proportion. And even if that was a multiple, if more money than that was put in, there's many, many opportunities for this open space money to be used. And yes, you do give some of the decision making on exactly what the money is being spent on goes to the Conservation Commission, trusting that and knowing that they will do a good job and will steward the money well. And I don't think the CPC, I think the CPC can follow this process of putting money into the conservation fund. And many towns are doing this and successfully doing it as a means of enhancing their open space activities.
Well, I don't have any problem with what you're saying. I'm just saying that there's an extension of who's doing what with whose money here. It can all be great. And frankly, if you read the statute carefully that enables the Conservation Commission to set up this fund, it's a very broad statute. It allows the Conservation Commission to do a whole lot more than we see within CPC. So I think that you've got all sorts of interesting authority issues. And what I'd suggest, Julie, is that you may want to have put together a draft of what you think the trust should look like, and give our committee the opportunity to figure out what we can agree on. Because we obviously are not going to agree on everything that the Conservation Commission has the authority to do. But what we can agree on, you might get it in stone and it may last forever. But right now it's a drafting issue as far as I can see.
I do think that we're asked to vote on giving money to something that doesn't exist and doesn't have any parameters. So before we can really give a vote, we have to know what those parameters look like. As Peter was just saying, we have to have some idea of what are the conditions inside the Conservation Commission for that fund. What is the plan? So that we know what we're doing. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I think it makes perfect sense, because if the fund has a specific area that deals with Community Preservation Act money, you can do anything else in the world you want, and the only thing that's restricted is the CPC money that comes in. I mean, it becomes a drafting issue, and I've dabbled in enough municipal law over my lifetime to know that there's a lot of informality that goes along until somebody gets caught. So I think that if the proposed trust language is floated, and floated in such a way that CPC can be comfortable with it. Then you go to town meeting, you get the trust approved, and the next warrant article funds our gift.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Does that make sense to you, Julie? Julie?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I just want to make the point that the fact that the conservation fund is broad, and it is, if you read the law, it's the conservation commission is allowed to take gifts and do other things like that. We, as the CPC, don't need to be involved in anything else that the Conservation Fund is doing. Our responsibility is to deal with what the CPC money is being spent on, and that would be being followed separately in terms of accounting.
Yeah, I think that's why we need to see that written up first, so we know what we're agreeing to. But Lily has her hand up, and so does Anne. So go with Lily first, and then
I
Anne.
was gonna say, I mean, why can't we do for Julie what we've done with other buildings and make a condition and say in that condition, because clearly putting together a trust is a complex business, and the question before us will we seed it with $100,000 of CPC money? And what if we create a condition that says that we will seed it with that money, and that money is only to be dispersed or used for projects that fall within the parameters of the CPC, which is what you said you're going to do anyway, but we could make it a condition rather than
It definitely will be a condition, Lily. There's no question. And that's what we're trying to, if they set the trust up and they have a provision within the trust to recognize that CPC money is different, then we give them the gift subject to those conditions.
I understand. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that we can drive that rather than wait. And as we do in other projects where we
It's
set the
making our
conditions.
conditions. Yeah. Anne, you have a question or a comment?
Well, my comment is that if other towns have done this, then rather than us reinventing the wheel, can we find out have they done it, or can we get advice from CPA people in Boston?
Yeah. Good point. Jeff?
We're pursuing that.
Jeff has
And I just want to go back. There would be, unless we just wanted to say it just for everybody's knowing what's going on, I guess. It wouldn't be a condition that CPC money can only be used for CPC purposes, because that's required. The state requires that.
Oh, okay. So we don't really need to write that condition.
Well, let's just worry about that later. I think that there's going to have to be some cross language in this thing, because it's not going to be informal. It's $100,000 this year. Over 10 years, it's $1 million, and we continually are going to want to fund it. It's just a question of making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's. So this is going to have this particular project is going to have some legislative drafting, whether we do it or the town council does it. But this is not something that's going to walk through town meeting without definition. So let's just do our work now and not worry about it when town meeting time comes.
Jeff, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I mean, could the CPC set up its own fund that we would then,
No,
have
we can't.
full control of?
Yeah, we can't. That's why we're doing this through the Conservation Fund. Yeah. When we were investigating this exact thing, it's like, how can we have a pile of money to purchase land when it comes up, rather than waiting for the process of town meeting, etc. The way to do that is through a conservation fund.
Well, could we have a dedicated conservation fund that was only for CPC projects?
Well, that's what this would, well, it won't be for CPC projects really, but it would have to follow CPC, requirements, but the Conservation Commission would make the decision. Is that right, Julie?
And the Conservation Commission, yeah, as we said, has the ability, has a broader mandate than just CPC monies or CPC projects. Although the types of things that they would be doing would likely be similar, but and right now we don't have a conservation fund, so we don't have a history in town of its use of funds. We have not had this in the past.
Well, I guess I just want to say I share Peter's concerns, and we would need to build something in that ensured that any money from the CPC would be used for CPC projects from in front. And I think that he outlined a worst case scenario where the money gets spent by the Conservation Commission authorizes it to be spent, and then the CPC says, well, that wasn't really for what a CPC purpose. You would need to build in mechanisms that would prevent that from happening.
So that would come in the form, and I think everybody's been saying this, in the form of a conditions on the CPC money, as we have conditions for the 1888 building, or we have conditions for the 1821 bell tower or other projects that we have.
Could a condition be that the CPC has to approve use of conservation funds related to the money that it's given?
If that happened, then there would be no point in having the fund, because you're just right back. That would be the equivalent of these annual project proposals.
I mean, if you had the money in a trust that was liquid and able to be used, could you say that before it's used, it requires the approval of the Community Preservation Committee as well as the Conservation Committee?
Well, Massachusetts law says that once the money is in the fund, it does not, for the money to be spent, there would be a condition that it has to be spent on CPC eligible items, but it's not possible to come back and say, okay, now the CPC has to prove that specific use.
So the next step would, maybe I could talk to the town administration about talking to town council about getting some input from them.
That would be very useful. And I'm great to Peter on information that you're gathering that we can apply to this and other members of the committee. It is a new thing for our town. It's not new for towns in Massachusetts or cities in Massachusetts, but it's a new thing for our town. And I think it'll be very beneficial to the town, and we need to answer all the questions that the committee has to present the fund in its best light, and to underline how useful it can be.
I think there's a way to draft this where it meets the best of both possible worlds. And now what we need to do is we need to see what that looks like.
Lily, you have a comment or question?
This is more of a process sort of comment, and that is, are you thinking about holding a public meeting before town meeting to talk about the establishment of the trust and why it matters? Because that might save a few hours on town meeting. It might not, but it might.
Are you asking Julie or me about
I'm
that?
asking Julie because
Yeah,
it's
that's
really a
Julie's
question about the
question. Yes.
trust, not the because if the town gives buy-in on the trust or understands the trust ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
then funding it through CPC funds will probably not be a problem for people at all because they see. I mean, it makes so much sense because of the fluidity thing. But that's why I was just thinking is like, boy, having a conversation about this in town meeting, if people don't understand what it's about, we could all be a lot older when it's done.
Plus, we need people to come to a public hearing. That's what I have to say about that. Chris, I'm going to let Chris, I know he's not on the committee, but I want to get his input, so I'm going to have him talk right now. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Kathy. So what I'm hearing folks saying is that really the main thing that you need is a clear definition of the conservation fund, what its purposes are, and parameters for how the funds would be spent and how to ensure that CPC funds would be spent appropriately. And I think we can provide that. As Julie mentioned, there's a whole cadre of towns in the valley that already have this set up, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel and start over from scratch and do research from zero here. We can utilize those examples from other communities and create the kind of document that you're looking for that would eventually go to town meeting. So I just wanted to say, I think we hear the concerns about this, and they're definitely something that we could address pretty readily.
That sounds great. I like that. So, I'm wondering, like, do you want to give us the document that you come up with, then we can bring it to town council to review before we vote on it? I mean, I don't want to go to town council separately because then we're going to have two different, entities coming up with.
Okay, let me just suggest something, Kathy. I'd love to see whatever draft that they deal with, because we're going to then have to deal with how to fund it and the wording and conditions that we use as a reflection of their trust. Just so at that point in time, then we raise our hand to town council and say, are we doing this right? It may be, I dealt with Lisa Mead for about 10 years, and in the old days, I would have just called her up and said, Lisa, what do you think? But I think they have to have touched on this also. So once we see the broad base of the conservation fund, then we can propose some wording subject to council review that would allow us to make the gift and not have to worry about it. Because we're going to make the gift, we just have to figure out how to do it to adequately protect the requirements of the act.
So what I think you're saying is basically what I was saying is that they're going to come up with an outline, and then we're going to present it to town council to review and add anything. So
yes, I think that's the right approach. That gives the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Commission more time and to get that detail that is needed for the CPC and ultimately for the consideration of this by town meeting.
great. So I think we've gotten through that one. I hope everybody's, any other comments? I don't know, but I love it. I think it's great, Julie. Thanks for all your work on this, really.
Thank you, and thanks to Chris and the Conservation Commission. We have really good momentum in town on open space, and this will, if we're able to do this, I think it'll be a real addition to that.
Absolutely. So if there's no other comments, I'm going to move on to the next thing. Julie's going to give a quick update on the Mass Trails grant, so you know where that's at.
Yeah, so the Mass Trails grant was submitted by the Open Space Committee in February of this year, and they had a very slow process this year in actually making the grants, but we did not receive one. The CPC grant that was voted in town meeting I always get mixed up. I guess it was this spring. or no, it was last spring, was $18,000 to match the money that we had asked for from Mass Trails. We did hear back in October that we did not receive the grant, but Chris and I had a debrief with the Amanda Lewis, who runs the Mass Trails program in November, and she was very encouraging to us to resubmit. And so we're in the process of resubmitting using the comments that she gave to us and other comments. And that submission will be in February of 2026. And so what we're asking of the CPC, or just, I guess, clarifying that that match grant that we got of $18,000 was to be used within 3 years. We're moving the use of it, the match grant, further down 1 year from the first year to the second year of those 3 years. So we're just wanting to reinforce or check in with the idea that the match is still active and can be used in our new submission.
I think it's fine, because you're within the 3 years. I don't see a problem.
Yeah,
So good luck.
thank you.
So the next thing on the agenda is the Engaged Deerfield Committee has roped us into going to the next meeting and present, which was actually quite nice for them to have us there. And I'm planning to go, and I'm looking for a volunteer to go with me. Lily's already going to be there in another capacity, so she's out.
You wrote open space in, so I'm got a
capacity too. Okay.
yes.
Anne?
I'll go, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Lily, you have a comment?
Just take a moment to explain to everybody what this is, and hope that everybody comes. That we're trying to have these, they're called committee fairs, and we're doing them once a quarter to introduce residents of Deerfield to the different committees in town to hopefully get more people involved. That's what it's all about, and also, so many people move here and they don't understand, especially if they move from a city that has like a mayor and all that kind of stuff. They don't understand how small towns actually get things done, and that they can shape their community. We have a lot more ability here to do that than in cities and stuff like that. And so that's the hope, the aspiration, the goal of these things. So thank you all for participating. I appreciate it. Or we all appreciate it.
Well, they requested a flyer that basically said what the CPC is all about. There's two options here. I can show you a draft that Lily and I worked on, or you can just say you don't care and just let Lily and I do it. I don't have any.
We trust you. You can do it.
I'd love to see it. No, I'll use it as a template.
You want to see it?
Yeah.
So Lily, can I share my screen?
I believe I gave share power to all participants.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, I don't need to see it right now.
Oh, okay.
unless there's a large demand.
It's on the agenda actually that I sent out.
Okay, great. I'll look at it there. Thank you.
Okay. And if you have any comments, get them to me within the next few days, because I want to finalize it. And Lily, are you willing to make it look pretty?
Sure, I would be happy to.
All right. I don't mean to give you another thing to do, but it's not my forte, this kind of stuff.
No. And so this is something that each committee is going to hand out to the people who come, so that when they go home, and it helps them to remember what they learned, but also if they are interested in joining the committee. Now with the CPC, that doesn't work because everybody's appointed, but it's still good for them to know about it and understand that everybody's appointed from all these other committees, I guess.
So lastly, is anything unanticipated within the last 48 hours? And without anything, I think we have to set the date for our next meeting. We still have 2 cemetery things to go over: conditions for the Mass Trail, for the conservation grant, and conditions for the 1821 building. What else have we got to go over? Let's see.
Kathy, what is the date by which we have to have all the official language into town hall for the warrant? Do you know?
Well, now that it's in May, I don't know, it might have moved up. It used to be, the end of March. So I think we probably have it that long anyway. So I didn't hear back from Chris Harris as to what Wednesdays in January he might be able to make, so we're just gonna have to set a meeting. We still have to meet about other things, so if he can't make that meeting, we'll just do another Wednesday, but, so January 7th, 14th, 21, 28, any preferences, people, dates they cannot make? So I would want to give some time to, with the holidays and so forth, for people to work on conditions. So I don't think the 7th is such a good day. Want to give more time. Julie, what do you want what day would look good for you? I'm going to give you some time to work on things. I mean, you can go to the end of January. We have other stuff we can do at the next meeting. Doesn't have to involve your conservation grant.
I would say the 21st would be, the thing is, we have this Mass Trails grant to submit on February 2nd. So I think if the committee had if it could be one of the items that, we talk about, like a first draft sort of situation on the 21st, I think that could probably work.
Okay. So January 21st, is that good for everybody?
It's good for me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going skiing that day, so that's good for me. All right. Well, we will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Anne?
Yes.
Frank?
Aye. Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yep.
Lily?
Yes, please.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good work.
Thank
See
you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.